They called it the Blue Whisper, a legend among the older alien races, a planet hidden in the fog of time, lost in ancient warfare and rumor, home to a species that supposedly burned too hot for galactic peace. Most didn't believe it existed. Some claimed it had been purged long ago. The rest? They laughed. Fairy tales, they'd say. No such thing as Earth, until we showed up in orbit, guns hot. I remember the way their comms went dead. Silence. No challenge, no orders, no smug alien voice trying to barter or bluff. Just silence. They'd spent centuries telling themselves we were gone, extinct, weak, myth. They were wrong. My name doesn't matter. Not anymore. All that matters is they saw us. I was on board the Kirin 7, a destroyer-class assault ship outfitted with scram cannons and breach torpedoes. Part of a battle group that had been quietly forming along the edge of Galactic Sector 19. We weren't just there to fight. We were there to remind the galaxy who they'd tried to erase. The Zeren Coalition controlled most of the inner sectors, cold-blooded, arrogant, and ruthless. They'd wiped out dozens of species in the name of order, enslaved hundreds more. They controlled trade, travel, tech, and they thought they controlled the story. They made one mistake. They didn't finish the job centuries ago. Earth had gone dark after the collapse, yeah. We fell off every star chart, buried under cosmic silence and radiation storms. But we didn't die. We went underground, rebuilt in silence, and watched. We watched as they mocked our name in archives, called us primitives, ghosts, savages. Then the call came. Deploy. No survivors. That was the Earth Armada's first official order in over 200 years. They had a fortress ring orbiting Velthar, a gas giant in their third system. 20 ships, planetary cannons, orbital shields. Not just defense, a statement. That ring was the pride of the Zeren fleet. Impenetrable, they claimed. We cracked it open in 12 minutes. I still see the flames in my sleep. Alien bodies drifting, ships breaking apart, screams in frequencies not meant for human ears. I remember breathing heavy in the combat pod, suit covered in ash and gore, boots slick with blood from things that didn't bleed red. We didn't come to negotiate. We came to show them the stories were true. They thought we were gone. Ancient, dead. They didn't know Earth-bred survivors, fighters, monsters. I lost half my squad in the breach. Juno was split in half by a plasma surge. Reed got sucked into vacuum when the hull cracked. But we pushed through. Pain didn't stop us. Fear didn't slow us. We had rage. Old, generational rage. The kind passed down by fathers who died screaming and mothers who taught their kids to shoot before they could read. We took the control room by hand. No AI, no tech tricks, just men with blades and fury. And then we broadcasted one message across every Zeren-controlled system. The fairy tale is real. Earth remembers. They didn't answer right away. Cowards never do, but we knew they'd hit back. We knew they'd come hard, and we wanted them to, because they forgot the one truth every human is born knowing. You don't get to bury a species like us without consequences. You don't get to erase Earth and expect silence. Not when we've waited this long to hit back. Not when the entire Armada just jumped in. The silence after a kill is never clean. It lingers, sticks to the inside of your mouth, gets in your lungs. You can bathe, you can scrub, you can scream into the void of space, but you'll never get rid of it. It's not about blood, it's about what you take with you. After Velthar, after the fortress ring shattered, the broadcast was sent on every frequency, every band, even the old Earthwave AM channels that no one used anymore. Because we wanted the older ones to hear it, too, the ones who remembered, or pretended not to. The fairy tale is real. Earth remembers. We knew they'd come after that. Not just the Zeren. Others, too, the ones who stayed quiet when we were hunted. The ones who sold out species like ours for peace, for profit. They'd hear that signal and know exactly what it meant. We weren't ghosts anymore. We were a reckoning. The return trip to the carrier ship Revenant was dead quiet. My squad was down to 3, me, Vane, and Bricks, all of us dripping with blood and static burns, armor cracked, pulse amps overheated. We didn't talk. There was nothing left to say. Vane's helmet visor had melted halfway through the breach, and I could still see the raw skin underneath. He didn't care. Bricks had a broken arm, wrapped in torn nanofiber, and hadn't blinked since we pulled him out from under a collapsed beam. That's how Earthborn soldiers are. We come back, or we don't. There's no celebration. The hangar bay stank of oil and ozone. Engineers were already patching ships, scrubbing down gear, wiping blood from walls like it was routine. Because it was. Get your wounds sealed. You've got 6 hours before deployment, barked Commander Terran, a thick-voiced bastard with the face of someone who had lived through too many close calls and not enough sleep. He didn't wait for a salute. None of us gave one. Respect is earned in blood, not in protocol. I dropped onto the med slab and let the autodoc tear into my arm. Burned muscle, shattered elbow plate, nerve damage. Didn't matter. Pain wasn't new. Pain was background noise. The doc pumped me full of coagulant and bone mesh and moved on to the next body like I wasn't even there. Across the room, someone was crying. Not soft, either. Sobbing, breaking apart, the way people do when their last grip on someone just snapped mid-battle. I didn't look. If you looked, you got attached. And if you got attached, you died slower. Terran found me while I was pulling my chest plate back on. They've confirmed it, he said, holding out a cracked datapad. Jaren High Command is rallying. Every core system's gone dark. They're not hiding. They're preparing. I nodded once. They're bringing the fleet, I said. Not a question. Bigger than Velthar. Thousands of ships, probably half the coalition. They're calling it a purification campaign. Of course they were. That's how empires dress up revenge. We won't hold them in open space, I said flatly. You know that. Terran didn't blink. We're not going to. He tapped the pad, flipped the screen. We're pulling back. To Sol. That word hit harder than any blast I took on Velthar. Earth? I said, almost disbelieving. Taran nodded once. They need to see it. The real thing. Not myths. Not broadcasts. We're bringing them to the grave they tried to fill. I didn't speak for a long second. Then, how much time do we have? 72 hours, maybe less. And just like that, the countdown began. The jump back to Sol was rough. Gravitic turbulence, pulse drive disruptions, residual static from the fortress wreckage. It all made the ship feel like it was shaking itself apart. I stood alone in the observation deck. Armor peeled off. Black undersuit half charred, watching the stars stretch and smear into colors no one on Earth ever knew how to name. I hadn't seen home in over 10 years. Not real home. Not the dirt and air and gravity of it. Just pictures, simulations, archives on old drives smuggled out before Earth went full Black Ops. You never really leave Earth, though. Not in your bones. When the Revenant finally dropped out of FTL, I expected something ceremonial. A speech, a trumpet, something to mark the return of the lost wolves. Instead, there was silence. Then a voice, low and unmistakably human, came over the comms. This is Sol Defense Network, identity code. Terran sent it. Seconds passed. Then, welcome home, Revenant. Engage planetary shield lock. Direct descent approved. Docking zone. Old Atlantic bastion. Old Atlantic. The East Coast line. I'd only seen it in dreams. The sky was choked with orbital arrays. Old, jagged metal platforms, some rusted, some still humming with charge. Earth had turned into a fortress, not shiny, not sleek, brutal, ugly, effective. Every satellite was weaponized, every signal encrypted in old Earth slang mixed with mathematical garble no AI could parse. The bastion itself was sunk deep into the cliffside. Massive guns lined the water's edge, ready to reduce anything airborne to ash. We touched down in silence. The ramp opened. Earth air hit my lungs. It was real. Cold wind, salt, dirt, smoke, rain. I stepped onto the platform, boots touching Earth soil for the first time in over a decade. No applause, no welcome. Just eyes. Hundreds of them. Soldiers, engineers, old war dogs, kids barely past 16, all armed, all hardened, all watching us like they weren't sure if we were ghosts or traitors. A man stepped forward. No rank on his chest, just scars. "You brought them to our doorstep," he said. Not angry, not surprised, just tired. Taryn nodded. "We had to." "You better be right," the man said, turning away, "because they're coming hard." That night we gathered in the bunkhouse, the old kind, metal walls, flickering lights, creaking cots, no AI, no automation, just steel and sweat and the stink of survival. It felt familiar. Vane sat across from me, his face half-healed, the rest still raw. "You think we're ready?" he asked. "No," I said honestly, "but that doesn't matter." He laughed, bitter and low. "Yeah, figures." Brix was cleaning his rifle, slow and methodical, like it was a ritual. He hadn't spoken much since the breach. I didn't push. "We shouldn't have come back," Vane muttered after a while. "We should have kept hitting and running. Stay shadows." "They already knew," I said. "We just forced their hand." He didn't argue. In the corner, a radio played an old Earth track, something bluesy, dusty, full of sorrow. The kind of song written by a man who lost everything and didn't get it back. We sat in silence, listening to it. Then the lights flickered once, red alert. The next 48 hours blurred into one long scream. Zarin scouts hit Luna first, probing shots, testing our response. We sent a response. The Gravedigger, one of our lunar defense frigates, lit them up with a solar lance. The wreckage rained fire over the Sea of Tranquility. But that was just the beginning. By the time the Jaren Armada dropped into range, the sky above Earth looked like the inside of a furnace. Thousands of ships, massive carriers, cloaked destroyers, bioengineered hivecraft, all blotting out the stars. They thought we'd break. Instead, we bled. And we made them bleed harder. The first wave hit hard. Drop pods raining down over the Atlantic coast, ripping through cities long turned to fortresses. Earth's guns sang. Rail cannons shredded their air support. EMP mines knocked out their comms. The sky turned red with wreckage. I was in the thick of it, on the ground, rifle hot, blade soaked, screaming orders through static. They kept coming. So we gave them Earth. We gave them trenches filled with fire, cities rigged to collapse, rivers laced with acid, drones hidden in craters, dogs trained to tear out throats. We gave them humanity's last breath and dared them to choke on it. And still they came. On the third day they breached the bastion wall. I was there when it cracked. We held the line on the eastern corridor, just past the generator core. Vane took a spear through the gut, still managed to drop 2 more before he went down. Brix covered my flank until his arm gave out, then used his teeth to pull a grenade pin before charging straight into their formation. I don't even remember screaming, just killing, breathing, killing again. When the dust cleared, I was the last man standing in that corridor. Barely. Blood pouring down my arm, eyes stinging from smoke, lungs screaming. And then I saw him. A Jaren officer, tall, silver-skinned, four-eyed, wearing ceremonial armor like he thought this war still had rules. He pointed his blade at me like I was worth something. "You should not exist," he hissed. I spat blood at his feet. "Neither should fairy tales." Then I charged him. The Jaren officer moved fast, faster than I expected. His blade was a living thing, some biosynthetic hybrid that shifted mid-strike, hissing with energy as it cut the air inches from my throat. I ducked low, pivoted on my heel, and slammed the butt of my rifle into his ribs. The crunch was satisfying, but not fatal. He staggered back, but recovered quickly, that smug, detached calm never leaving his face. Like I was beneath him. Like even now, bleeding and burned, I wasn't worth fear. That's the thing about enemies like this. They're never scared until they're screaming. I charged again, rage boiling under my skin. My blade met his, the screech of steel on alien alloy echoing off the walls. We were dancing in the ruin of humanity's last fortress, surrounded by corpses, wreckage, and fire. And still he thought he could win. I fought dirty. I always had. Headbutt, knee to the gut, blade to the thigh. There are no rules when your world's on fire. There's only survival. He scored a hit across my shoulder, deep enough to bite bone. I didn't flinch. Pain was just another signal now, like static on a radio. I was far past feeling it. I drove my knife up under his ribs, through the armor seam. He made a noise then, like a gasp, a click, something that wasn't meant for human ears. I twisted the blade. His mouth opened. 4 fangs. No sound. Then he dropped. I stood over his body, chest heaving, hands shaking, blood soaking into my boots. That was Earth's answer to extinction. They didn't stop coming. The Jaren wanted to drown us in numbers. Classic tactic: saturate the ground, keep pressure high, wear the defenders thin. Problem was, Earth didn't break like the other worlds they'd crushed. We dug in. We set traps. We turned every sewer, every ruined subway, every collapsing city block into a death zone. We used guerrilla tactics like breathing. You don't get to spend 5 centuries hiding underground without learning how to fight from the dirt up. Still, the price was steep. 3 million dead in the first week. Civilians included. Whole sectors of old Europe gone under plasma fire. Asia-Pacific zones burned to slag. South America's forests used as cover for hivecraft deployments. Our drones were still digging out Jaren larvae weeks after the assault. They wanted to purge us. They wanted to prove Earth was just a legend. But every time they pushed, we pushed harder. Every time they killed 100 of us, we made sure 1,000 of them never saw home again. That's what vengeance looks like when it's passed down in blood. I found myself reassigned after the bastion breach. My left arm still only half functional, the nerves fried from that bioblade strike. I was limping, favoring my side, but command didn't care. "You're alive." "That's enough," the officer said without looking up from his data console. I was moved to the Wolves, an old Earth name for a recon kill unit, unofficial, unsanctioned, operated in black sectors, no tags, no ranks, just targets. Their lead was a man named Rhett, not the kind of guy you forget. Big, quiet, eyes like frozen steel, and a permanent snarl that said, "Talk to me and die tired." We met in the ruins of what used to be Berlin, now just concrete bones and smog. He looked me over, noted the blood, the arm, the burns. "You fight?" "I bleed." He nodded. "That'll do." We didn't talk much after that. Wolves didn't talk. We hunted. First stop was in the Red Line, deep underground, near old transit systems, where the Jaren had been dropping eggs, seeding the tunnels with biomatter to grow their next generation right under our feet. We went in silent, me, Rhett, and 2 others. No helmets, no lights, no noise, just motion sensors and memory. The tunnels stank of rot and ozone. The air was thick, wet, clinging to your skin like sweat that wouldn't dry, Every step felt like it echoed a little too long, like something was listening. We found the nest. Took 20 minutes. A pocket of pulsing walls, alien veins strung across ancient earth brick like tumors. Dozens of eggs, some already cracked. The smell was worse than death. Rhett gave the nod. We placed charges. Thermite and acid compound, nothing left to recover. On the way out, we ran into something new. Not drone, not warrior. It looked human. Too human. She stood in the shadows, skin pale, eyes too wide, too black, mouth stitched with golden thread. Her arms were folded across her chest like a corpse. And she didn't blink. Rhett raised his gun. I held out a hand. Wait. Something about her. No. It. That wasn't a person anymore. It was wearing someone like a costume. Then it spoke, but not out loud, inside our heads. You are the memory, the ruin, the scream. Rhett fired. The bullet passed through her, hit the wall. No damage. She didn't move, just stared. Earth should have stayed dead. Then she vanished. Just gone, like static being shut off. We didn't talk about it. We just ran. The charges blew. The nest burned. But that moment stuck with me, because now we knew the Jeren weren't just attacking. They were experimenting. Back at base, I tried to get intel on what we'd seen. Command gave me nothing. Wolves operate off mission parameters, not ghost stories. Bullshit. I'd seen alien tech, mutated bodies, genetic hybrids, psionic screamers, but never something that looked like us, like me. Someone was hiding something. Worse, someone was building something. Rhett called it the mimic threat. He said he'd seen a report once, buried deep in the Black Archive, Earth DNA being used off-world, not cloned, reconstructed, from remnants, battlefields, old blood. They're making copies of us, he said one night, cleaning his knife. But wrong, twisted, like bad reflections. Why? I asked. He looked at me, cold. To replace us. The war stretched. Days turned into weeks. Every hour brought more blood. They sent their elite next, the Talonborn. 7-foot monsters with armor grafted into their skin and minds linked like hives. They tore through 3 sectors before we figured out how to fry their link nodes. After that, we stopped playing defense. We hit them where it hurt. Deep strikes into their staging grounds, orbital assaults on supply lines, Black Ops raids on their cloning facilities. Earth's fury wasn't a roar anymore. It was a precision blade, cutting its way through every lie they ever told about us. I killed so many I stopped counting. But I remembered every face, every human we lost, every scream over comms from a squadmate who didn't make it back, every body we buried in craters that used to be cities, and every mimic we found, every twisted version of ourselves they tried to use against us. By the time we hit the Jeren flagship above the cradle moon, I wasn't even me anymore, just a weapon, a human blade. And I was fine with that. Because they'd made a mistake. They dug up the fairy tale. And they forgot. Earth doesn't forget. I used to wonder what made Earth different. It wasn't just that we were human. It wasn't our history, or our science, or our tactics. Other species had firepower. Other races had intelligence. But Earth, we had something else. We remembered. Not just facts or victories or old glory days. We remembered the pain, the betrayals, the taste of ash in our mouths when the skies fell and no one came. And now we were the ones coming. The cradle moon was sacred to the Jeren, some kind of ancestral world used for rituals, indoctrination, military birthing centers. Massive, hollowed out, laced with tech they refused to share with the rest of the galaxy. Half of it was organic. Breathing, pulsing like a heart that never slept. And we were going to kill it. It wasn't just about tactical advantage, it was personal now. they'd tried to erase Earth. Now we were going to erase their origin. Command dropped us in silent. No comms, no support. Just a blacked-out Corvette with cold drive signatures, slipping past the Gerin outer patrols like a ghost through fog. Wolves only. Me, Rhett, 2 fresh bloods, Darren and Milo. Kids, barely old enough to shave, but they'd survived the siege of Dakar Hive, and that made them hard enough to bleed beside. We hit dirt in the central trench of the cradle, deep inside the atmospheric shell, surrounded by towers that screamed prayers in frequencies we couldn't hear but felt in our bones. The ground was soft. Not soil, something else, like skin underfoot. The place breathed. It was alive. We didn't talk, just checked gear, loaded weapons, set the beacon jammer. Then we moved. Inside the cradle, time didn't make sense. We passed through structures that weren't built. They were grown, walls that bent as we approached, lights that followed movement like eyes. We saw Gerin children, larval forms, still incubating in wall sacks. They stared through their fluid prisons with mouths that hadn't yet formed, their half-made limbs twitching like dreams being born. We didn't touch them. We weren't there for the young. We were there for the root. The spine, that's what they called it in intercepted comms. A central data life form grown from centuries of genetic memory. It wasn't just their network. It was their soul. Take it out, and the entire command structure collapsed. Rhett led us down through vascular corridors, tubes of muscle and tech, until we found it. It was taller than any ship I'd ever seen. A spire of pulsing light and coiled nerves. Stretching into the ceiling like a god's spine had been ripped out and wired into the floor. Tendrils reached out around it, connected to every wall, every heartbeat, every breath inside the cradle. Darren exhaled. "What the hell?" Milo crossed himself. "This isn't tech." "No," I said. "It's worse." It was belief made flesh, and we were going to burn it. We set the charges. 4 packs of fusion core bombs, synced to detonate from command, uplink the moment we were out. It was surgical, cold, perfect. And then the walls screamed. Not figuratively, literally. The entire chamber vibrated with a sound that dug into your teeth. The tendrils started writhing. Lights shifted to red, and from the shadows above, they came. The Blackguard, Gerin's elite. Silent, armored in symbiotic plating, bone blades grown into their arms. They didn't speak. Didn't hesitate. They just fell from the walls like shadows come to life. Milo died first, throat torn open before his rifle even clicked. Darren tried to pull him back. Rookie mistake. Got a blade through the gut for his trouble. Rhett dropped 3 in 5 seconds. His pistol never stopped barking. I hit the ground, rolled under a swiping claw, emptied my last mag into the chest of a charging blackguard, then switched to blade. It was close, dirty, feral. One of them tackled me into the wall. I felt something snap in my ribs. My blade was gone. So I bit him, ripped a chunk of his face off with my teeth, and drove my elbow into his eye socket until it caved. That's the thing about us. When you take away our guns, our tech, our numbers, we still find a way to kill. Because Earth doesn't train soldiers. It breeds survivors. By the time it was over, I was soaked in blood. Rhett was limping, arm dangling like a broken rope. Darren was dying. Milo was gone. "You good?" Rhett asked, voice ragged. "No," I said. "You!" He grinned. "Good enough to finish this." We dragged Darren to the chamber's edge. His breath was shallow. He looked up at me, eyes glazed. "Tell my brother," he started. I shook my head. "Tell him yourself." He coughed a laugh. "Liar." Then he was gone. We triggered the uplink. Nothing happened, no boom, no detonation, just static. Rhett cursed, slammed his fist into the wall. They blocked the signal. Bastards rerouted the relay. I looked at the core, still pulsing, still alive. There was only one way now. Manual, I said. We stay. Rhett didn't argue. He just nodded, walked back to the charges, and reprogrammed the timer. 2 minutes. Then he looked at me. Out, he said. I blinked. What? You can still run. I can't. My leg's gone. You know it. Not leaving you. You will, he said, grabbing my collar and yanking me close. Because someone has to live to tell the story. Rhett. He slammed his head against mine, not hard, just enough to make a point. This is how it works. One survives, one remembers. The old rule. One lives, one tells. I grabbed my gear. My chest felt like it was caving in. But I turned. I ran. He was already sitting by the charges when I looked back. Just sitting. Calm. When the explosion hit, it wasn't light. It was darkness. Pure, sudden, absolute. And then silence. The cradle was dead. The Jeren command net collapsed. Their assault waves faltered. Half their fleet scattered. And Earth pushed harder. We struck at every world they held. Liberated colonies they'd forgotten they even conquered. Broke their weapons. Burned their history. Dismantled their lies. The fairy tale had teeth. And we were no longer myths. We were war. Weeks later, I stood at Rhett's memorial. It wasn't much. Just a stone slab in the old Pacific Range, overlooking broken water and skies still streaked with ash. I didn't cry, couldn't. All I could do was speak. They thought Earth was gone, I said, but we weren't. We were quiet, patient, remembering. And now they remember us too. A breeze rolled through, cold, real. I felt something shift inside me, a crack, a scar, something I'd carry long past the war, because the galaxy might forget. But Earth remembers. Always. Peace doesn't sound like silence. It's quieter, sure. But it's not still. It hums. Like something breathing shallow, something waiting. After the cradle moon burned, everything changed. But not the way Command thought it would. Yes, the Jeren retreated. Yes, their fleets broke apart, abandoned strongholds, and pulled back to sectors too deep for us to follow without losing half our ships. But it wasn't surrender. It was pause. They weren't finished. Just stunned. You can shatter a hornet's nest and watch the swarm scatter, but only a fool believes they won't regroup. Earth had struck its blow. The fairy tale proved real. And for the first time in galactic history, the galaxy feared the species it once mocked. And me? I couldn't feel anything. They brought me back to Earth in silence. No medals, no parades, no broadcasted heroics. I was debriefed in a gray room with flickering lights. 2 command officers behind mirrored glass, asking questions they already knew the answers to. What happened in the cradle? Why didn't you extract Rhett? Did you see the neural fusion core detonate? Each question felt like a slap wrapped in curiosity. I gave them the truth, bare and ugly. Rhett chose to stay. The uplink was blocked. Manual was the only option. They asked if I tried to stop him. I didn't answer. They moved on. The bunkhouse they gave me wasn't the same. Bigger, cleaner, private. But I hated it. I missed the stink of sweat and oil, the distant hum of power conduits, the way Rhett used to sharpen his knife every night before patrol. Even Milo's awful off-key humming in the showers. Now I had quiet. And it was unbearable. Some nights I'd sit on the edge of the cot, palms against my knees, staring at the wall like I expected it to open and drag me back into the fight. Other nights, I'd wake up drenched in sweat, reaching for a rifle that wasn't there, hearing the scream of the cradle's walls in my ears. The war hadn't ended. It just moved inside. I wasn't the only one breaking quietly. You'd see it in the mess hall. Soldiers staring too long at their trays. Conversations that ended in silence halfway through. Jokes that died in the throat. Kids, because that's what most of them were, sitting beside empty chairs, the ones who didn't make it back, who'd been vaporized or torn apart or just gone without a trace. Survivor's guilt wasn't a theory anymore. It was oxygen. The more of us that made it home, the fewer of us knew what to do with it. Because when your entire life is war, peace feels like failure. I was called into central briefing 6 days after return. Same gray walls, same dead lights, but this time, it wasn't command behind the desk. It was Director Calder. Human intelligence, level red. The kind of man who made people disappear with a pen. "Sit," he said. I did. He slid a file across the table. I opened it. Photos, scans, genetic logs, some of it classified beyond top level, coded in DNA lock algorithms only decrypted by blood sample. Inside were images of us, or something that looked like us. Mimics, some recent, too recent. "This isn't over," Calder said. "I know," I replied. He tapped the file. "They're trying again. Underground cells, biolabs hidden in the edges of space, not full clones. They learned their lesson there. Now they're making blends, pieces of humanity stitched into Xeran hosts. Weapons in our skin." I felt something in my stomach twist. "What do you want?" "Revenants," he said simply. The name hit like a punch to the ribs. Revenants were Earth's ghosts, operatives declared dead, buried on paper, sent into black sectors to hunt threats that couldn't be acknowledged. No rank, no laws, no return. "You're wasting your time," I told him. "I'm not," he said, "because we didn't win." I narrowed my eyes. Calder leaned forward. "You think this ends with the cradle? The Xeran were never the disease, just one symptom. Earth's reappearance, it shook something loose, woke things up. You want to help us hold on to peace?" "Peace?" I scoffed. "This isn't peace, it's halftime." He smiled. "No warmth." "Exactly." I left the same night. No goodbyes, no farewell drinks, just a bag, a transport pass, and a new name. They gave me a shallow grave somewhere in the system registry, a memorial stone, a falsified death report. "Fell in combat during the last phase of the Xeran push," it read. That was it. One sentence. No mention of Ret, no mention of cradle. That's how Earth says thank you. The ship they gave me was a junker, a cargo hauler retrofitted for stealth runs. No bells, no chrome, just armor and silence. I called her Ash Wake, because that's all I seemed to leave behind anymore. My missions weren't grand anymore. No epic battles, no fireworks, just infiltrate, locate, dismantle, quiet work, ugly work. One job had me tracking a mimic cell in the asteroids of the former Tolari belt. Took me 3 weeks to find them. Only 12 targets. But when I walked into that underground facility and saw the faces they were wearing, human faces, my hands shook for the first time in years. One of them looked like my brother. And I didn't even have a brother. Another op brought me to a planet with no name, just a mining code. A Xeran outpost trying to restart the neural hive core. I nuked it from orbit. Didn't wait to see who was still alive inside. That's what I'd become. A one-man plague, the ghost they sent when fear wasn't enough. And it worked. But the more I erased, the more I felt something slip. Then one day, I got a signal. Scrambled, low frequency, buried in noise. But I knew the code. Ret's code. I nearly dropped my drink when I heard it. It was impossible. He died. I saw the detonation. There was no way he made it out. I ran the decryption anyway. What came through wasn't clear, just fragments. Not alone. They're deeper, Earth doesn't see. Then silence. I didn't sleep that night. My body was still. But my mind ran the same loop over and over. What if he survived? What if they took him? What if the explosion wasn't the end, but the beginning of something worse? I changed course. I didn't tell command. Didn't ask for clearance. I went dark and dove straight into the last coordinates before the cradle went off-grid. What I found wasn't a debris field. It was a signal cage, a structure made of dead ships, their remains bent into orbit to mask something below. A living field of static. And at the center, a pulse. Human. Faint. But alive. I stared at the screen, heart pounding like I was 20 again. Then I whispered the words I hadn't said in years. Rhett! And below, buried in the dark heart of what we thought we'd destroyed, something opened its eyes. They say memory is unreliable after trauma. But there are things I remember from that last night on the cradle so vividly, so painfully, they feel like they were burned into my skull. The way Rhett nodded when he knew he wouldn't make it out. The calm in his voice when he said, "One survives." The detonation, the light, the absolute finality of it. I had accepted it, buried him. The pain had turned into part of my bones, not something I cried over, something I carried. And now, a signal, not a Jaren broadcast, not mimic bait, a coded human pulse, buried in the static waste of what should have been annihilation. Rhett's code, not replicated, not falsified. His. I don't remember pulling the ashwake out of silent drift and kicking the engines back on. I don't remember rerouting the security failsafes or disabling the EarthNav tether. All I remember is rage and confusion twisted so tightly in my chest I felt like I might vomit if I stopped moving. Because if Rhett was alive, either everything I believed about that night was wrong, or something had dragged him out of that explosion and kept him for reasons that made my stomach turn. The cradle wasn't a battlefield anymore. It was a graveyard. Even on approach, I could see the wreckage hadn't been cleared. Jaren bio-frigates floated like broken bones. Husks of Earth's dropships drifted slowly in the gravity tide, and torn cables still sparked weakly in vacuum. It should have been a clean-up zone. Or restricted. But the place had been forgotten, or intentionally avoided. When I broke into the orbit shell, my comms jammed. Completely. No echo, no bounce, no signal return. I was in the dark, and the pulse was still beating below. Touchdown was rough. The surface of the cradle had changed. Gone were the breathing towers and pulsing light. Everything was dry, blackened, like whatever force kept it alive had been strangled. The air was thin, wrong, like it didn't want to be breathed. I stepped out into silence, my boots crunched over brittle glass-like bone. The locator chirped faintly, still tracking the signal. I followed it. Down. The old vascular tunnels had collapsed. I had to climb through jagged passageways, crawling through half-melted corridors where organic matter had fused with metal in grotesque spirals. It was like stepping into a corpse that hadn't accepted it was dead yet. Eventually, the passage widened, and I saw it. A chamber, still intact, shielded by some kind of inner pulse shell, barely humming. Inside was a single pod, human-shaped. I raised my rifle. My heart was beating like thunder. The pod hissed. Steam. Then the top folded back with a mechanical groan, revealing a pale figure slumped inside, hair matted, muscles atrophied, and a face I'd never forget. Rhett. He didn't wake up immediately. His vitals were weak but stable. No obvious injuries. No visible implants or augmentations. But something was off. I couldn't place it. It was like something was missing in the air around him. The way you know a house is empty even when the lights are on. I ran a genetic scan to confirm. 100% match. This was Rhett. But not exactly. He stirred as I finished the test. Groggy, eyes opening slowly, gray and unfocused. "Bren," he rasped. "My name. That was my name. I hadn't heard it spoken in months." "Yeah," I said, kneeling beside him. "I got you. You're safe." He blinked. His eyes were wrong. Not glowing, not inhuman, just hollow, like the light behind them had dimmed. "Where am I?" "Cradle. What's left of it." His breathing hitched. It didn't. You blew the core. I saw it. You should have died." "I did," he whispered. I froze. He looked at me. Not with fear, not with confusion, with certainty. "I did, Bren. I remember dying. I remember fire. I remember peace." I didn't speak. I couldn't. They brought me back. We moved fast. I knew better than to sit in one place for too long. Whatever had kept him alive or brought him back wasn't something I wanted finding me while I was standing still. I helped him walk, though his strength returned faster than it should have. He wasn't shaky, just dull, like a copy running on half the original voltage. "You remember anything else?" I asked as we climbed through the cracked tunnels. "Voices," he said. "Not Jaren, not alien." "What then?" "Familiar. Not words, emotions, intent." I glanced over. "They wanted something from you?" "They still do." I didn't like the way he said that. Back on the ship, I ran another scan. Neural mapping this time. Reflex timing. Memory triggers. Everything checked out. It was Rhett. But buried in the back of his neural activity was something else, like a second voice behind his thoughts. Not foreign, just caged. "Did they put something in you?" I asked directly. "No," he said. Pause. "Not exactly." I leaned forward. "Talk to me." He looked up, the first emotion I'd seen on his face since I pulled him out. Shame. I wasn't the only one. There were others, not many, but enough. Jaren didn't just want to clone humans. They knew that failed. They didn't want copies. They wanted hosts. They took those on the edge of death, soldiers, prisoners, survivors too broken to fight, and rewired them. Not physically, spiritually. Using pieces of the cradle's neural core, merged with Jaren biopsionics, they built flesh vaults, human bodies powered by hybrid memory minds. Not mimicry. Something worse, something true. "You're not fully you," I said quietly. Rhett didn't answer, but he didn't deny it. That night, as the ship drifted in dead orbit, I sat with my rifle across my lap, watching him sleep. His body healed too fast. His breath never hitched. He didn't twitch, didn't dream, just existed, like a machine pretending to be tired. I should have killed him then. But I didn't. Because for all the strangeness, for all the dread coiling in my gut, he was still Rhett, or he wanted to be. We didn't go back to Earth. I didn't trust Command, not with this. They'd bury it, deny it, or worse, try to study it. So we drifted, looking for traces of other vaults, other soldiers like him, and we found them. One in a mining colony, strapped to a wall, still alive despite being half dismembered. Another in a refugee ship, speaking in 3 voices and smiling at nothing. All of them half human, all of them bleeding Jaren intent. None of them survived. Rhett was the only one who still chose to be human. "Why me?" he asked one night, staring out at the stars. "They picked you," I said, "because you didn't break." "No," he said softly, "because I did, just not the way they expected." I sat beside him. "You think you're dangerous?" He looked at me. Cold. Certain. "I know I am." We didn't speak for 2 full days after the last kill. I'd had to do it myself. A vault survivor, half Jaren, half human, calling out for her kids in a voice that wasn't hers. I saw the shimmer in her eyes when she looked at me. Not hatred, not confusion, recognition. As if she'd seen me before. As if some part of her still thought we were on the same side. That was the worst part. Not the screams, not the burning, the familiarity. It was starting to settle in me like rot in the bones. That sick realization that what the Jaren started with those vaults didn't end with the war. They planted something deeper than weapons. They planted us. Rhett said nothing while I cleaned my gear. No grief, no questions. Just stared at the firelight from the Ash Wake's engine room, eyes reflecting that low orange glow like mirrors. "You knew she wasn't gone," I said eventually. He nodded. "You felt her." Another nod. "I don't want to kill them anymore," I said. "I want to stop them before they ever become this." Rhett finally looked up. "It's too late." He told me what he remembered in pieces. The cradle explosion wasn't death. It was a transfer. The neural core didn't just power the Jaren's network. It stored conscious fragments, echoes of their ancestors, warriors, leaders, thinkers. The plan had been to preserve power across generations without relying on biology. But when Earth hit back, when Rhett triggered the core's overload, the system panicked. It needed a new vessel, something strong, adaptive, human. Rhett didn't just survive the blast, he absorbed it, or it absorbed him. He couldn't tell the difference anymore. "There's a voice," he said. "Not Jaren, not mine, like a third shadow in my mind. Sometimes it whispers, sometimes it sleeps." "You think it's controlling you?" "No," he said, "but it's watching." Earth caught up to us faster than I expected. A Black Ops cruiser dropped out of slip space 2 sectors out from the broken rings of Vargos Prime, one of the outer rim junk worlds we'd been tracing signals through. The comms buzzed just once. "Ashwake, you are to stand down. Prepare for boarding." No identifiers, no threat, just a cold statement. I looked at Rhett. He didn't flinch. "Let them board," he said. "Why?" "They already know." The soldiers who came aboard weren't regulars. No patches, no names, expressionless faces, just cold steel and perfect formation. And behind them, Calder. Same suit, same empty eyes, like someone had carved empathy out of his skull with a bone knife. "Rhett," he said, voice flat. "You found me," Rhett said back. "I never lost you." That chilled me more than anything. "You knew he survived," I said. "I suspected," Calder replied. "We tracked a faint energy residue months ago. We knew someone had absorbed the cradle's core. We just didn't know who. Now we do." I stepped between them. "You're not taking him." Calder raised one eyebrow. "He's not yours to protect. He's not yours to dissect." That finally pulled something from Rhett. A bitter laugh. "You always had a way with people, Bren." Calder ignored us both. "You're not under arrest, yet. But we can't allow you to keep running. Earth needs to understand what you are." "I don't even understand what I am," Rhett said. "That's why we'll help." He paused, then added the one sentence he knew I'd hate most. "For the safety of Earth." We agreed to go back. I didn't trust them. Rhett didn't either. But we were running out of leads, out of targets, out of time. And deep down, I needed to know if Calder was right. If Rhett was still Rhett. Or if I was walking beside something else entirely. The facility they brought us to was off-record, deep underground beneath a decayed sector of the Androsian Rift. One way in. No windows, lights too bright, floors too clean. They called it the Well. How poetic. The walls were lined with biometric scanners and radiation scrubbers. Whatever they were expecting Rhett to do, they expected it to burn. They didn't throw him in a cell. They put him in a room with mirrors, observation glass on all 4 walls, furniture too new, no sharp edges. They treated him like a bomb that hadn't decided when to explode. He didn't fight it. He just sat and waited. They tested him for 3 days. Neurological scans, psychic wave resonance, tissue regeneration rates, None of it made sense. He healed too fast. His brain fired on patterns no one recognized. And when they exposed him to recovered Gerin tech, the machines obeyed him. They didn't interface like they would with tech users. They didn't reject him like a foreign signal. They responded like a child finding its parent. That terrified them, terrified me. But Rhett, he barely blinked. On the fourth day, Calder brought me in. "He's stable," he said, "but not secure." "You think he's going to break?" "No," he said slowly. "I think he already has, just not all the way." I sat across from Rhett. He looked tired, but clear. "You remember who you are?" I asked. "Yes." "You still feel like you?" He paused. "Mostly?" "Mostly's not enough." He looked me straight in the eyes. "Would it be for you?" He told me the truth that night. The Vault program wasn't a Gerin invention, not originally. They found it, buried, in an ancient system long abandoned, a precursor machine, something older than either species. A vault meant to preserve knowledge through symbiotic integration, not cloning, not mimicry, merging. The Gerin reverse engineered it, tried to copy the idea, but they never fully controlled it. They thought the human mind could be broken and repurposed. But what they accidentally built, through centuries of trial and error, was a doorway. And Rhett? He was the first one it opened through. "It's not trying to destroy me," he whispered. "It's trying to live with me." "And are you letting it?" I asked. He didn't answer. That night, alarms woke me. Red lights, sirens, containment breach. I ran to the mirror room. Rhett was gone. The glass was shattered. But not from the inside. From the outside. That was the moment I realized what I'd missed. It was never about keeping Rhett in. It was about keeping something else out. They found the bodies first. 4 of them. No blaster wounds, no signs of struggle, just emptied. Their faces were frozen in peace, like they'd died mid-dream, and their neural signatures had flatlined in complete silence. "Like their minds were unplugged," one of the scientists muttered. I already knew what had happened. This wasn't an escape. It was an invitation. The thing hunting Rhett wasn't a Gerin project anymore. That ship had sailed. They'd played with something ancient, something they never understood. They didn't clone human soldiers. They accidentally built a bridge. And Rhett was the only one who hadn't crumbled under the weight of it. But the bridge swings both ways. He hadn't just inherited the cradle's mind. It had inherited him. And now something on the other side had come looking, for him, or maybe for us. They tried to track his signal. But it was gone. Scattered like ashes in wind. He'd severed his link to the Earth nav grid, wiped every trace of his DNA beacon from the system, and left only one message in the Ashwake's private relay. Just 3 words. "Don't follow me." Of course I did. I burned across sectors, following psychic residue and distorted frequencies, whatever crumbs I could find. The trail went cold near the vast abyss, an ancient void of collapsed stars and gravitational anomalies even the Gerin refused to enter. Until now. I plunged into it blind. No backup, no plan, just a rifle, a knife, and the need to bring him home. Or stop him. The place he led me to wasn't a world. It was a monument. Drifting just past the edge of the abyss, hidden in the gravitational seam of a dying star, was something enormous, like a cathedral built out of bone and silence. Ancient tech. Older than Earth. Older than Gerin, older than war. It didn't broadcast, it didn't move. It just waited. And Rhett was inside. The structure opened like it was expecting me. No doors, no defense systems, just a path. As I walked through, walls lit up with our memories, mine and his. Old training sessions, combat logs, Our first deployment on the dunes of Sandreach. Rhett losing his temper when our squad leader died. Me dragging him out of a collapsing building on the Jovari front. Each step forward brought a new flicker. A moment. A scar we'd both worn. This place was reading me. Knowing me. It wasn't a prison. It was a mirror. And at the center, I found him. He stood in a chamber shaped like a human skull, walls pulsing with low amber light. His body looked the same, but his presence didn't. He felt larger. Like something standing too close in your peripheral vision, always just out of focus. He turned slowly. No weapon, no threat in his eyes. "Bren," he said softly. "You're a hard man to follow," I said, gripping my rifle tighter. "I told you not to." I never listened well. He smiled faintly, the kind of smile he used to give before a drop. Tired, resigned, sharp around the edges. "You came here to kill me?" "No. But you're ready to." "Yes." He nodded once, like he respected that. We stood there a long time. I watched the way his breath moved, the way his eyes never blinked. He was still Rhett, but something else was alive behind him. "I thought I could bury it," he said finally. "I thought if I ran far enough, quiet enough, it would fall asleep again." "What is it?" He looked up. "The first mind." "The what?" He placed his hand on the wall, and images poured into the air like fog. Planets swallowed by silence, entire civilizations erased without fire, without bombs, just forgotten, their stars dimmed, their names lost. This isn't a weapon, it's a memory killer," Rhett said. "It doesn't conquer, it erases, one species at a time, until only silence remains." "And the Jaren unleashed it?" "No, they found it, just like I did." He turned to me, eyes burning now with something that wasn't fire. Clarity. "It doesn't want to destroy Earth, Bren. It wants to become it." He told me what the Vault Tech really did. Not just preserve consciousness, but overwrite it. Slowly, subtly, through dreams, language, instinct. The Vault took hosts not to dominate, but to replicate. Mimicry beyond biology. It learned through us. And the more it learned, the closer it got to becoming indistinguishable. The more we fought it, the more it understood what it meant to be human. And Rhett was its perfect copy. Because he never quit, never broke, never lost himself, until now. "I can feel it changing me," he whispered. "I still dream, but the dreams aren't mine anymore." "Then fight it." "I am, every second. But Bren," he stepped forward, "what if the only way to beat it is to let it finish?" I raised the rifle. "No, you don't get to make that choice." "I already did," he said. The wall behind him opened, revealing a vault. Massive, alive. It pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. "This is the last one," Rhett said. "The true core. Not Jaren, not human, just origin." He turned back to me. "I can destroy it, from the inside, but I won't come back." "No," I said, throat tightening. "You have to let me go. You asked me to remember you, not bury you." "I'm not asking you to bury me," he said, stepping back towards the core. "I'm asking you to trust me." I lowered the rifle. Because I did. He reached the vault and placed both hands on the surface. Light poured from his skin. White, pure, searing. The vault screamed. Not loud, not violent. Like it was afraid. And then everything shattered. I woke up in the ash wake, drifting free from the gravity pull, alarms wailing. The monument was gone. No debris, no signal, just silence. Pure, peaceful, and empty. Rhett was gone. For good this time. Earth never knew what he stopped. Calder wiped the records. The facility vanished. The mimic reports were buried beneath layers of redacted files. I didn't argue. Some truths are too heavy for peace to carry. But I wrote one line in the classified debrief. The fairy tale ended, but the man became the myth. I still fly, still hunt threats in the dark.